Hi everybody, and welcome to another Woodworking Wisdom. I'm Jason. Could do something a little bit different, and if you think about the room now, I'm in a different backdrop. I'm in the prep room, so next door to my hand tool room and in between coal wind room. It won't make any sense to any of you lot if you've not been in here. Well, some of you have actually. So room number 3 for me. If I do Ben's room, I get 2 weeks off or something. Then I must do. So okay, going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a little bit of routing stuff. I have quite a good background as a furniture maker. I came out of college years ago and worked for a guy who made bespoke kitchens, joinery. One of my favourite items we had, and we had spindle model as well as router table, was an interlock scribe rail joint. And we used to use it a lot for kitchen doors. Well, in reality, it's not just for that. There are loads of things you can do with this. So what we're going to do today, we're going to look at, obviously, the cutters. We're going to use them. The setup has got to be router table. Okay, that's paramount. I get through to you. Got to do this in a router table. Don't go try and do this freehand. So quite an important aspect. Then we're going to make small door. But I hate the word door because this isn't just about making doors. You can make a number of different projects. So Ben's got a couple of pictures, I hope. So let's have a look at the picture you've got, Ben. Number 1. So a couple of projects I've done for home. Not totally clear of the picture, but I think you get the idea. Now I made a fireplace. So my fireplace was done using the scribe interlock joint. So that one worked really well. That's all in oak. Where the white patches are either side, we inlaid tiles, so they were glued on, bonded. The middle section is oak panel, so that's bonded to plywood. So I planed it right down to about 3mm thick, then bonded it onto the plywood. So I've got it on there, so you get less movement problems. That looks really nice. I did the slate work around the bottom. I think with Ben, can you try and do the other picture as well? I swap them over. Other thing I did was a glass cabinet. And again, most people think this has got to be a solid panel. No, you could put glass into this. So the glass in this I've had for about 30 years under my bed. It's beveled edge glass I got when I was at college. So my outlaws wanted a display cabinet for her French pottery and china. So the last cabinet they had got serious woodworm, so I said I'd build a new one. It's quite nice to use the glass up. The front frame, if you think about it, you can see the 3 glass panels in there. 2 of those open. The ones either end and the middle one are in situ in a rail. So it makes it very visual to allow you to look at what's inside it. Cuts down the bulk of the material in the frame. So don't go thinking about this just as making doors. The other thing I've done, which I haven't got a picture of here, is bath panel. So you can do quite a lot of different things with it. Don't go thinking it's just going to be doors. All right. So where to start? I suppose really we'll start with the cutters. Let's just go over to here. So we're going to go, I'm going to put these on the end of the router table. What is a scribe interlock cutter? All right, it's classed as a Stile rail cutter. Now if I bring this up into here, I'm hoping we can see the profiles. Now we do 3 different profiles. And this is classed as a reversible Stile rail cutter. The reversible bit, well, I can explain a bit now. It depends on which way the material is presented to the cutter. Okay, so one part will be upside down, the other part will be down the grain, will be the other way up. So need to get that bit right, and I'm going to explain that. We do 3 different shapes. So we do a shaker one, we do an OGEE one, which is over here, and we do a taper. So it says a tapered edge, a shaper one's pretty much square, and an OGEE cutter. So let me just grab while we're there, which I think it's probably a good place to look at it. I've got a rail that we've done. I think you can see the moulding on the end of here. That will fit into, and this is where people struggle with this. I'm going to struggle to get it in there. I'll get the side of it, look. Well, that fits in that way. We'll show you that a bit better in a minute where I can grab hold of it. Okay. When we do the moulding, down there. So it depends on which way you present the workpiece is going to give you that thing. Now, by being a 3-piece cutter, we are using 2 of those cutting sections at any one point, never all 3. So we're either using the top 2. So we've got the shape disc, which does the end grind, and the groover, which is the slot. Or we use the bottom 2, which does the moulding down the grain and creates the tenon. Now, by having a 3-piece cutter, you just move it up and down in the router table. So much easier. You can get some, and we even sell them, as a 2-piece cutter. So you undo the nut on the top, you take it apart, you move things about, and hopefully get it back in the same place. Is it worth that £12 difference? No. This is so much easier just to put it in the table, move it up and down. No, there's nothing to take apart. So easier to do, okay? These are 1/2 inch shank only. So you can't do them on a little 1/4 inch router. You've got to have something big enough and strong enough to work with it. Okay, so 3 different profiles will do most of what you want. So let's lose that for a sec. We're going to grab the cutter in a minute. As we've already said in a bit, I think we can probably go overhead a little bit. Let's have a look on there. All right, I'll cut a section on here, slots together. So you can see how I can just put that in. I can even pick that up. Gives you a nice moulding, nice and clean. We're going to go all through the little tips I've got. Now, I'm going to really throw that in again now, which we're going to go to camera 3, Ben. That will show that really nicely, that moulding. And the grain, interlock. All right, lots of gluing up area. Gives you a nice, easy way of making that moulding. And that joining section, that's the most important part of this. Okay, so we're going to make a little door. We want some wood. Overhead bins are number 4. So Ben's sat here doing your camera work and stuff today. He's doing all right. He's getting good at this. More patient than I am, I think. All right, so I'm playing around with a bit of timber. We have some tulip or popular. I'm just laying stuff out. And this goes back really, I suppose, to what I did when I came out of college. So with Keith that I used to work for, we'd always have the grain climbing. So I've got the white sapwood on the side, not maybe too clear on the camera. It'd be nice to know. But coming down here, turn it that way. That's a little bit better. I want the grain climbing. So we're going to have that up. That's the top. Bottom rail. Okay, so I'm looking at what I want as my face edge for this door. Just going to do this bit then. Now, when I looked at this earlier, I kind of went, I'll put a cross on there. You might be able to see it. From my point on the camera, we get the 4 camera shots on the display that we've got here. It's not totally clear on there. So to help you guys at home, we're going to do something that you don't do. Okay, back onto 4, Ben. So something that you don't do, I'm going to mark it with a marker pen because this is my face edge. The problem with doing marker pen, it's not going to rub off very easily. It'll go into the wood a little bit, so it'll stain it. But I want something as a face edge. I can even have something as where the moulding is going to be. Internal. All right, good. Okay, so mark that up, okay? Then let's go back to 1. Right, and you've got a question, so off you go.
So first question in from Maria. She's asking, she says, "Hi, Jason. Good to see you filling Craig's shoes. Is there a minimum and maximum thickness of the for the timber for these cutters?"
Okay, good question, and it's something that I could have probably explained. Minimum, you can come down to about 19 mil thick. Okay, so what Maria is looking at in reality is this bit. I tend to go up to about 21. So maximum is 21, minimum is 19, 18. If you're getting the material clean, you're about 21, leave it. Don't keep playing it off. Thicker sections can be good. If you go too thin, and I've laid our door, just going to slide things along a little bit. Can we go to 3, Ben? You're already there. Clever boy, isn't he? Right, okay. If you go too thin, this is the backing material where the panel fits in that square groove. If it's too thin, you haven't got a lot of structural strength there. It will break off. Likewise, if you're too thin, you don't end up with anything as a step on the top where it comes together. It doesn't look good. Okay, so your thickness is a good point. It's something to think about. When I did the glass cabinet, I did exactly the same process as we're doing now. Once I finished, I used a rebate cutter with a bearing and just rebated the back out, cleaned up the corners. So quite easy to do, but still needed that material thickness of about 20 mil. Okay. Everything else, the joy of doing this and making it yourself, you can make whatever sizes you like. So as I said, bath panel, display cupboard, whole range of things. Doesn't have to be off the shelf. You can go floor to ceiling if you like. Wow. That's something else. I've got thinking of doing a floor to ceiling built-in wardrobe at home, out some English chestnut I've got, and this will be the joint system. I always want to make it look like old traditional paneling in a house. Now, it could be quite nice, quite a big project to do. maybe we'll do it in here. We could do it a weekly thing. Okay, so we have our timber, all right? Where are you, Ben? Let's have a look there. So we've got our uprights. I've done edge, which way up it's going. The arrow is where the moulding is. All right, so just going to move those out of the way. We want our cutter. I'm going to go with the OGEE one. Really a fan of this. Sorry, but I'm going to move you about. So you can see it down in there. 3 pieces of that. Okay, and like I said, so much easier to use. Router, I've got Bosch 1600 router. Where can I get in shot a bit more? I'll go lay it down. Look. So my cutter goes in. I can press the button. That'll lock the spindle. Get our spanner. Tighten it up. Go do something weird now. Off camera this. Look, this is good. Tightened it up. All right. My favourite router to go on a table is this router, Bosch 1600. Why? Because actually in underneath the table, there is, and I know Craig's used this a bit in here, this section is what we have under the table. So the body that I've got will slide into this from the underneath. I can lock it on height. I've got fine height adjustment. Move it up and down, built into the router. So fantastic for that, okay? So I put that one back out the way. So we're going to put the router into the table. Now, at the moment, remember, the router is unplugged. Going to undo my fence. I didn't have to, but we're going to. Why didn't I have to? It was actually in the right place, but we're going to move it. Okay, Ben's got another question before we get too in depth.
So another question from Maria. She's asking, could you make a panelled box with these, or are the pieces too small to safely move along the cutter?
Okay, moulding depth. So this is trying to figure out ways of answering that. That's quite interesting. Moulding depth from the edge of the moulding to the top edge is 10 mil. So it's not that big a moulding. Likewise, and that's something interesting for you to do if you're thinking about what size door you want. You want to take the width of the door that you want, minus your 2 uprights. So these are 40 mil, these are 45 mil each. Okay, so that's 90 mil. 500 door and 410, plus 20 mil for the add-on for the overlap of where the moulding goes together. So your 410, this top rail would become 430. Okay, so Maria, to answer your question, yes, you could do things like a moulded box, something like a blanket box if you wanted. Now, you said about, is it too small or can it be too tricky? I'm going to turn that question around a little bit on how can you hold smaller things safely? So if you can think of a way of holding it, not a problem. Okay, so think about that sort of thing. You need to think about how you're going to hold it and grip it, which is great to think about. Now, we've got our cutter, and I'm going to do exactly that very scenario now. We need to hold and we need to cut across the end grain bits. So let's have a bit of wood first. So I want to go across in reality on the router table, through the cutter, that way. The bench overhead as well at 4. So I want to push it through there to do that end grain section. That's my first cuts on all of these. All right, we're going to use the top of this cutter to do that moulding, those top 2 parts. Over the years, I've got quite in depth with helping design stuff and make things in here. So one of the things we came up with years ago was a sledge. Really beneficial. So this has 2 clamps, a nylon backstop, which is the white bit in here where my fingers are. And again, overhead will look good. There you go. Look at that. So that backstop there works nicely. We've got our clamps. They clamp it down in place. We have a slide stop. I'm going to move a bit of wood out of the way in here. That'll come all the way up. All right. So we can put wider bits of wood in there, maximum width in there, because someone's probably going to say, hey, Jace, how big a bit can you get in there? Maximum width I can put in there is 140 mil. That's quite big. Just going to slide it back in, fix it in place. If I flip this over on the underside, there is a T-bar that fits in a T-slot and a washer bit on the front that locks into the T-slot on the router table. The screws along here hold that nylon bar in, so if you wear it out, you need to move it along. You can move it along to accommodate different sizes. You're going to wear that bit out, so it is replaceable. You can make wooden ones, whatever you like. There is also 5 positions underneath here, so you can adjust where the T-bar is to suit different router tables. That makes it very versatile. So in reality, it will fit. I kick the wood out of the way into that T-slot. And it will allow me to slide along and go through the cutter in a minute. All right, so we've got that bit. Next thing, just going to drop it back up. I need to set up the position of the router cutter. We've got it, we've thrown it in the table. Other things I'm just going to do with the router, if I can get to it. Just going to put my pipe back on the back for the extraction. I'm going to take the speed down. All right, so minimal speed is good for this to start with. In between the cutter, let's have a look, Ben. I think probably on 3. Okay, there is a bearing up in here, big silver bearing. You want to make sure your ruler or your straight edge rests on it when you're doing this bit. Don't sit it on top of the bearing because it's going to give you a false reading. Got to be in line with it. All right, so if I bring the ruler, I can sit it up on there. We want to sit it level with. So first thing I can do is bring the fence forward to get it level. Now on the router table we've got in here, I have 2 stops either side with a measurement which I've set up the other day to 0. So I can get into there, bring that back. I should, if I go to 0 there and 0 this side, be level with my bearing. What I don't want it doing, and I think you can probably see this on the overhead, just having a quick look on what the camera's doing, I don't want this rocking. So let's bring it forward again. I can get it dead level. I'll come up to my 0. That's a good start point for a minute. I've got a lot to do at this stage. It won't hopefully take too long. I'm going to put that back in. Looking for my pencil line on here, which tells me where the bar is. My piece of wood on this cut is going to be face upwards. Black line. I want to put it into there. Now I'm bending down. You can't quite see where I've gone. I've come in from the far end where that camera is, and I'm bringing the fence down. Or sorry, bringing the cutter down, and I'm sighting through level with this fence. All right. Now this goes back if you think about minimum thickness size, because I'm trying to look at that height. Now, Ben, I think I did that picture. Now, I clearly can't put a pencil on the picture, but you need enough height. That gives you a close-up of something I set up the other day just to have a look, because it's worth kind of playing around with that idea of where that height needs to be. So I've got enough material on the top, the rebate cutter section on the very bottom of there that's going to cut the trench out the underside, create that tenon, leaving an even bit either side. Right, so that height's quite important to set up and spend a bit of time doing. I can even do that there, that feels quite good. So my height looks quite good. And that's better than I can show you probably looking down the fence. Okay, so we're to there. Ben, I think if you've got a question, right? Okay, let's do the question because I've got...
So a question from Phil. He's asking, is it a full panel door setup of... cope, stick, and panel bits?
Sorry, Ben, is it
a full
so you can, okay, so what you're thinking, so Phil, you said, yeah, so Phil, you can buy it in different ways. You can buy your cutter to do your stile and rail cutter, which will do what we're doing now, which will do the end grain and the long grain molding in one cutter. And believe me, that's the best way to buy it. Don't buy the 2-piece one because it's going to save you £2. The 2-piece one I class as a transformer toy, and you move a thing about it, you've got to get the shims in the right place, the bearings are, where's it go? 3-piece one, you don't take it apart, it's done. Up and down in the table, that's easy, okay? And then you can buy, if you want, which you haven't got to yet, raised panel cutter, okay? There is a set part for those, yes there is, all right? The other nice thing at the moment, kind of the reason I said I'd do this, the voucher cutters we've got kind of on an offer. We did a big order a got a bulk order in, so we reduced the price a little bit because we bought a higher number. So they're on a slightly cheaper price. I think the catalogue we're using now, 66, 70 quid. Wow. Yeah, that's actually, and it's going to do a lot of work. That kind of money, fantastic. Okay. Now, Ben, just go to camera 4 for me. So we're back on overhead. We're going to use the sledge. I want to push the workpiece through from left to right. But we are running, sorry, from right to left. Oh, that's nearly wrong, wasn't it? Right, but we are running on the T-slot in the table. We need the fence to be parallel to that T-slot. Okay, that's paramount for this. Now, I've said, and I've easy and quickly set it up because I've got a scale either end of the fence that gives me a 0 mark. You can't quite see it. It's just off camera, there's, right? If you haven't got that, how can you do it? How about one of these? Most of you have an adjustable square. So when I set this up yesterday to have a play, it's been a while since I've made a door like this. I've used the square to set it up and do an equal measurement either end. Sorry, Ben. Okay, so I can put it into there. I block the camera out on him, okay? Bring it up, lock it off. I can do the same this end, make sure we're nice and square and parallel. That come forward a bit. I can go to my ruler in the middle and check we're in line with that bearing. How about that? So that makes it quick and easy. Now, if you are regularly doing this as a job, make a mental note to yourself somewhere. Could be stick a sticker on it. Could be stick a sticker on the fence. Write it down somewhere. So on here I have, which way are we running? 131 millimeters on the ruler scale from the tip to there is my setback. That makes it quick. You don't need to measure it either time. And years ago I used to actually measure. And then I'd go down to here and I'd measure it. And then I'd, okay? So not too much back and forwards. So just bouncing around with, we've got our cutter height. We've got everything square. I can lock it off. Okay. Bring that in. I can undo. It's on there, so I bring it up. Next thing I can look at is the work when it's in here, and I'm just going to slide it back. You can see my workpiece come out the front there. Does it look square to the fence? It looks good. That's paramount. And again, your machining and prep are quite important for this bit. All right, so at the moment we're set up, we've got that in there, this side fence bit I said to you about earlier, 140 mil, that will go out to, I brought it back into rest on, so it secures the workpiece. Lock it down. The nylon bit on the back, yes, you're going to score a mark for it because that's going to stop the breakout. Can't quite see it, my finger's on there, okay? So we set up to that bit. Last few bits, earmuffs and goggles are important, okay? And I've got one other task just to do down here, and then I'll get Ben's question if I can find the lead to plug the plug back in. So I've got an MVR switch on the router table. That's a better way of going. So a no volt release switch. So I plug the router into there. That means I can turn the table on and off on the front leg, not on the wall behind, or not trying to reach into the router underneath. Just safer. Okay, Ben.
So Maria's got another question. She assumes that they're only available in half-inch shank, that the quarter-inch might be a bit too flimsy.
So, Maria, you've hit it in one go, and it gives me a good excuse to do, okay? It's quite a big cutter, okay? Then let's just have a quick on the quite a big size. Can't have even 8mm shank on this, would be too weak. This is best part of 38mm diameter. Overall length, 90mm up to the top of the nut. It's nearly 90mm. It's 87.9mm, so 88mm. It's quite a heavy object, okay? Next thing, I've already said, so let's just go back to main one, I think. I already said about drop the router speed down. It's quite a high cutter out the table. The further out you are, the more leverage you're going to push on the top of the cutter. And you're using the top two parts. You can have more vibration. You can reduce the router speed This pass is a one-pass operation. So you can slow your feed speed down a little bit. That's us. That's possible. Next thing, definitely, if you're going to go with something like a collet extension, make sure you slow the router down, because you're extending everything out of the shank bit at the bottom up to a lot higher. The further up you are coming, the more leverage you are putting on the router bearings, the more wobble and vibration you will cause. If it's running too fast, the peripheral speed of this spinning round will bend the shank. And it's scary, okay? Other logical things which I know we've covered in the past and looked at, on the router shank, there is a K mark right down on the shank bit. Ben, I think 4 will be good. All right, so you can't see it on here, but there's a K line down here. That tells me where I should be holding. 2/3 of the shank need to be held in the collet. No point in holding on a little 3/8 inch on the bit on the tip and expecting it to stay there. So make sure you're gripping up, okay? So collet extensions are a no. You won't get this on 1/4 inch shank. Got to be bigger router. Got to be table. All right. So we are now. Let's have a think. I've got to think of where we are now. We have set up our height. We've got our cutter. Fence, I haven't adjusted anything in and out yet, so we can leave that where it is. Tighten things up. Router, I can go on. That's good. Now I'm listening to speed. I can bring it up a little bit. That's about good. So not too high a speed. Check I'm up against there. We're going to do all 4 of these. So we'll go over a little bit to there. Good. Right. Undo it. I can take it back out. Come out the other end. Going to go round. So I lift it off. Back in. So we got the other one. Gonna load it. These are coming from that end. Gently through, not too quick. You're cutting end grain on this, so should be okay. I'm hoping the sound's alright. If not, we'll recover this in a minute. Expect Ben will let me know. The router's overpowering what you're getting, let me know. Last one to cut on this. Okay, so I'm hoping you got a little bit of commentary there, okay? All right, good, fantastic. That's nice to know. We're a bit unsure about how loud the router will be for this. We're not running too high a speed. Nice and controlled. Now this is cutting and grain fibres. Ben, I think we go down to there, 3. We've got nice clean moulding on that. All the way through. The nylon backstop stops any breakout. Nice and equal. Little bit of burn line, you're never going to see it. Better be you to go through there slowly and give it time to cut it and remove it. Difficult to do that in more than a one-pass operation because of what it is. Now, a few of you are going to say, and you probably might have had a look, it's expensive. 200 and something, okay? It allows you to do end grain stuff easily. 200 and something, priceless. Okay? Fingers are worth holding on to, sadly. Now, Maria, you made that nice comment earlier, and it's great because it got me, the other day I thought about this when we were setting up. Something I used to do, part of the routing class, was do this door. Making bigger items isn't too bad. I put a bigger piece of wood in here, hold it, I might be able to make it. But if I want to go smaller. So, this is 60 millimeters long, 59 millimeters long. I can put it in there, up to there. Just checking I'm level. Tighten up. Ben's got a question, so we'll do that first. Look. Sorry, Ben.
So I've got a few questions here. First one from Phil. He's asking, so he's saying the wider the bit, the less speed. So the bigger the router
So
cutter.
the bigger the diameter, the less speed. That's paramount. So in other words, we're going to use the panel cutter later. That I will run at rock bottom pretty much. Okay, slower speed is better, but also height plays a part in that. We do, let's just have a look and see if I can find it while we're on about this. Look, and it's good to get you to understand. Massive long architrave cutter. This is 3.5 inches long. Plus thing, the longer it is, the more leverage you're putting on the bearings. Any peripheral outrun, so too much speed, will start to make it wobble. Once it starts, forget it, run. Okay, so lower speed is good. A bit like we do with the wood turning stuff. Now, what I did with the router when we started it, I start the router, bring the speed up a little bit, listen to what's happening. No different than wood lathe. Exactly the same technique, can be really good to do. Okay, so yes, bigger diameter, slower speed, but also think about the height. So if you add a collar extension, you are adding height. Okay, Ben?
And then Cliff's asking about what you were listening for when you were bringing the speed up.
Noise. You'll hear the noise change. Let's have a quick go a minute. Look, so you can remember the noise will also come off the fence a little bit. It is a bit like a planer compacting the air as it's coming around clearing the fence. The quicker it goes, the more it's trying to compact it, the more noise it makes. It doesn't want to sound like a helicopter coming in to land. That's a blunt way of phrasing it, but you've got to be happy to want to stand next to it. I walked out of a training session years ago in here because the guy put the router cutter in and ran it too fast. It scared the life out of me. And I have a background with using machinery. So Ben?
And then a question from Callum, a little bit off subject. He's asking about the Japanese pull saws. Which one would you recommend, a backed one for general carpentry?
Oh, there is what we class as general purpose one. If you look through the descriptions, they do give a good description. So you get like a tenon saw, you get a dovetail saw. What you want to look at, think about how fine you want it. If it has a back on it, it will limit how deep you can go. My problem in here is can't remember names off the top of my head because they've got Japanese names. Okay, it becomes tricky to do. But read through the descriptions. If you get stuck, do us an email and I will figure out which one it is and send it back to you straight away. I promise. All right, Ben.
And then Fuller's asking, how many horsepower or kilowatts is the router?
How many
horsepower?
Okay,
kilowatts.
Watts. Okay, so this is 1600 watts. Okay, variable speed is paramount for this. All right, I'm laughing. Me and Ben were discussing how many questions we're going to get. We won't get money. It's a routing thing. We won't get money. Okay, so small Bosch palm router, 600 watts, non-variable speed. It won't do this anyway, but it spins at 32,000 RPM. That is 550 revolutions every second. All right. Incredibly fast. So when here, this is electric variable speed. 1600 watts is actually 2 horsepower. Biggest router you can get up to is 3 horsepower. And you're holding this. The bend saw that we regularly use in here for the demos, for the smaller size stuff, a bit like Ben's got in his room, okay, is 550 watts. This router is 3 times more powerful. Wow. Okay, so you're holding it. So it's got lots of oomph. But again, it's about matching the size of the cutter, torque, and what you're trying to do to it. How much cut, all right? So, Ben?
And then Robert's, we just mentioned it there. His Makita's only got an on and off, so no variable speed. Okay. So he's asking, do we sell a speed controller?
This has a dial, okay? So most of the bigger routers will have something as, let's just grab something. We'll show you, okay? And we're buying something with a variable speed. So Festo router, I'm going to go to 3 Ben. This has plunge handle, bring it down, have your dial where my fingertip is, okay? Higher or lower the number will vary what you get as a speed. All right, so quite an important part if you're looking at buying something as a bigger type router, it will have a variable speed. Okay, all right, so let's just have a quick go with this. Put the goggles back on, up to there. Cans back on the ears. So 60 millimeters long. One end, lift it up, insert back on the T there. I hold it so I can turn it around nicely and safely. And back up, forward, look it off. Okay. We can make mini doors. Okay, so what that sort of shows you how small we can come down to. We've still got quite a bit of width. We could go narrower width. Right? We could even do that molding, maybe cut it in half. If I was going to do something where I wanted a narrower section down the length of it, of this, I would actually do what I've just done, machine the ends, the molding either side, and then rip it in half, because it's easier to hold the wider bit whilst it's one piece. So that can be good, but it gives you an idea how small we can get down to. That's great to see. Okay, back to that. Our two uprights. Okay, for a minute, let's take those. We're now going to set up to do the moulding. We've done the end grain. We want to do the interlock. This is where this cutter really comes into its own. So first thing, let's isolate the router, unplug it. If I, free band, turn it over. I'm just checking where the cameras are. Something is a height gauge. And you can do this a couple of ways. My easy way is this. You can measure with a height gauge. So you can see what I've just done. Back of that tenon, feeling where that is. We want to now line up. Need a pencil. I don't know if you can see, I'm just looking on the screen. I mean, yeah, you can. Now I'm going to do it with the height gauge because it might make it clearer to see. The straight cutter section in the middle. So the middle cutting disc, I need to get the top of it level with my height gauge. So on the Bosch router, I can undo the collar, wind this up, try and adjust that underneath. That's not bad. Just down a bit. Other way I can do it, I can take the piece of wood and I can use a feeler stick, otherwise known as a pencil, and see what happens there. Does it feel flush? Is there any resistance? If anything, tiny little bit down. I could come up a bit. Get it flush. Lock it off. Okay. So we set our height now. We've done that bit. That's quite easy to do. Now we're going to go down the grain. Now, I haven't got to worry at the moment about moving my fence. It's in the right position. If you went with the two-piece cutters of this, yes, you would need to move your fence back, get it out of the way to undo the nut to turn the cutter around. I want my fence level. Okay, so if I did move it, we're going to reset the fence up. Where do you need to be? Level with that bearing. Paramount. Get it level. Use the ruler, check where things are. That's good. Tiny bit. Good. If we do this on maximum depth of cut, then you just go to 4. Okay. We do this on maximum depth of cut. Just going to turn it over. The cutter is coming in here and out that edge. Big black arrow I'm trying to drive for you. Out there. Nothing really supporting it. There's a small gap where the cutter's got to be with the fence. It will chip the fibres out. So if I do that all in one heavy 10mm cut, you will chip out the edge. And then you'll spend a lot of time cleaning it up with abrasive paper. So how can we do multiple cuts with this? The other cut we did earlier, one pass, because it's end grain, it's more forgiving. This is going down the grain. It will tear more. So what I'm doing, Ben, let's just go to grate, okay? 2 clamps. On the back of the table, there's a location I can get this in. I bring the piece of wood up to, clamp that on. 1. Clamp down far end as well. Exactly the same, finding the same location. That's where the fence rail bar is. That's got a square lock cut out, so the guide rail clamps fit into there nicely. That now gives me a reset point to know that I'm back level with the bearing. I can pull it forward now. Set. First pass. Next thing, I want something to keep the workpiece down on the table. Featherboard. Okay. We do different types. This one is designed to go on this table, so it's spring-loaded nylon. What I have added is a plywood backer. Why? I've got the distance of this cutter that overhangs the fence. If I have it flush, you cut the nylon apart. So I need to space it off. You could use wooden wheels. Got those. We've made those in the past. But if I do a plywood one, it also seals the gap up above where the cutter is. So have a look on tube then. So this big hole I've got in here, if I seal it up, I pull more air through the smaller hole, I get better extraction. So all little things like that can be good. Easy to do. I don't know, you know, we don't always think about trying to improve what things will do. So we can put our featherboard on there. Bring it back. How high do I want to be? Yeah, so my featherboard, let's just see where we are, camera. 2 would be good then. I'm looking roughly central, so I'm about there. A bit of pressure down on there. Again, we're unplugged at the moment. How much pressure can I push through? That's all right. Okay. Just going to turn the cutter around by hand. So that's why I said we're unplugged, just to check it clears everything. That's great. This will fit in underneath. What about now? I haven't got one here. Let's have a look then. Go back to number 1. What about if it's longer, floor to ceiling? It'd be nice to be able to push it in here. But if you are, and I think camera 2 will be great. If I come back a bit, you've got this long piece of wood and I'm back out the way. You're trying to get it in here. You've got nothing stopping it wiggling. Then you can go horizontal and sit out one. Okay, other one, Ben, where you were. 2 is good. All right, so this will go in here. It will fit into the T-track, like we've already done. Bolt in. So as long as I can go jousting and get my piece of wood roughly within that box of entry, it'll push it against the fence and push it down on the table. The other nice thing with this as a setup is guarding your fingers away from that router cutter. All right, so the featherboard's quite easy to set up. Now, we haven't got something that long. The problem with this can be we've got to push it through here. What can we have? Real simple push block. Piece of plywood, a couple of bits of dowel, screwed in from underneath. We taper angled the holes and we created a hook on this back edge. So it locks in around the piece of wood. Simple, eh? We want to be face down for this cut. When we use the sledge, the wood was face up. So I'm going to turn it over. My arrow will go down to the table and the arrow against the fence. How about that? So there, that one there. Goggles on. Earmuffs. Extractor. No go because got to plug it in. Bend out a bit. Into there. Now we're on. Same speed. Okay, first moulding. I had to work for that, so I'm going to bring it back a little bit. Won't hurt. One, we've got 4 bits to do. Face down, against the fence. Really good extraction. Banging that hole up helps stop anything coming out. 2, short section, arrow, face down. One to go. Our arrow, face down. Again, with having the featherboard it is, my fingers are nicely safe behind it. I can guide things, push it through. One pass done. So even at this stage, I can start to put things together and check how they come together. So hoping we get something flush. How about that? So we're going to move front to back. So by putting those 2 blocks on the back of the table, gives us a reposition point. Now, depending on the material, and I'm going to be a bit greedy, we're going to do it in 3 passes. If you're doing something like oak, you might do it 4. You could do a real minute. I'm going to do a fine one in a minute. Light cut. 1. Got to keep it moving. 2. The board's guarding the fingers. The push block works nicely to control things. Bearing, putting the bridging points between the flanks. 1 pass to go. Slide it back. This is going to take about 1 millimetre. Nice, light, final cut. Okay, do that. So I have what we got up here. How about that? Ooh. 1 pass. It'll do. I've got to be so careful how heavy I push. So last bit was just to give you an idea. Now, if I do a 1 pass down in definitely the back edge and on the front corner up through here on that groove, you'll get lots of little chipping out. Let's pull those fibres out because the cutter's coming out. So doing that nice light cut that we did last of all allows us to put this together. Nice clean finish. Build your frame. Put it together. If you've spent your time to set it up, then 3. This will be nice and flush. I mean, we can give you an idea. Nothing moves, nothing bounces. Nice pass over there. The flatter you get it, less cleanup you do later. Okay? So really easy to do. Next thing, on our panel. It's the bigger one out of the 2. We go with that. So we have a frame. Okay? Hoping you got that. So let's go. Next bit. Got to move our backstops. Shouldn't need them again. Cutter's going to come out. We will have featherboard again in a second. Unplug. Whilst I'm bending down, we've got to take the router back out the table. Drop it off. Going to take the cutter out, which is a bit precarious how I do this. Take the cutter out. We want a panel cutter. As we said, a lot bigger. So I'll drop this in a minute. I'm just going to set this up to my K-line. Other important thing with this is a cutter, and any cutter like this. When the cutter joins, or the shank joins the cutter, there's a radius corner. Do not try and grip right up there. It won't pinch on that radius. You won't get it secure. So you need to come back a little bit. That's done. Just going to tighten it up. Bush router. Speed dial. Whoops. Is over here. So I'm going to dial it right down. Down to there. Nice and low speed. Insert. I need to take out the table because we're putting a bigger cutter in. That's out. Got to go in. Slide that through. The beauty of this router is what I'm doing now. I can slide it up, makes it easier to change the cutters. Right, give us a second, Ben, then we'll do you, because I just want to get this set to there. Need to think. Okay, so opening the fences out either side, allow that cutter to go up over. We have a bearing in the middle of this. I'll grab the spare one I've got so we can show you. Checking we're not going to use the cutter to cut the fence either side, so we can tighten those up, lock them back in place. That's good. We want our depth of cut. There's two ways of setting our depth of cut for this operation. Let's move this a second, because it helps you guys see. We can either raise the cutter up and down. I think you're better where you were, Ben, 3. So we can either come up and down, or we can move the fence forward and back. If you're moving the fence forward and back, you're almost saying, I know my height I need to be at for this. It's going to fit. We don't. So the best way of adjusting the cut to get this panel to fit in our groove is to raise the cutter. So I need to be level with that bearing. There is a bearing in the middle there. Right down there. Look. I'm turning myself around so I'm trying to see what I'm showing you. That's it. I need to bring the fence forward, level to it. That's good. Lock it off. Okay. Up to there. Our workpiece can come in. Our featherboard can come back in. A little bit of pressure on the top. So my hand's pushing down, bending those little bits of nylon. Have a feel. I can move it, but it's pushing down nicely. That's good. I'm going to go around there. That'll be okay. We want our face edge. Have that. It's going to go down on the table in a second. Tighten things up. Okay. Ben, do you have questions? You stood up, so you must have something for me.
Yeah, so there's a question here from Frederick, and it was relating to the rail and stile cutter. He's saying, why does he always create small patches of burning when he does this? The cutter is sharp, and he maintains a reasonable and constant feed rate.
Right, okay. So, Frederick, what I need to know to answer that truthfully, but we're going to explain both. If you're doing end grain, you're going to burn a little bit because it's harder to keep it moving accurately, but the end grain you're not going to see. If you are burning coming down the grain, which is probably more likely from what you've described, and you're getting little black spotches, either one of two things. What creates the burning? Let's go through that issue first. Friction. Cutter's not moving quickly enough over the workpiece. It's in situ touching it too much. So either you are moving too slow through the cutter, or the cutter is actually spinning too fast. If it's spinning too fast, it will burn the surface. Okay? Other thing which really we don't always think about, you need to make sure the extraction is getting rid of that waste. If you've looked at what I've done, we haven't got a lot of dust anywhere. So it's pulled that waste nicely out of the way, because the waste will burn as well. But the chances are, the best tip I can give you, reduce your outer speed. Maybe take an extra pass like I've just done, set it up with the blocks in behind so you can move it back, but you can take an extra pass. If it's something very hard like oak, yes, you're more likely to burn it because you've got more resistance. All right, so hopefully that answered that. All right, so try and remember that you've got to keep it moving at a nice rate. Okay, doing our panel board in, we're going to go through, go to there. So I've got to put plug back in, open the little door and underneath there. Yeah, my EM is on a minute. Let's have a comes on. I've got to bring the speed up a little bit. That'll do. Now, with this is a cutter, a bit more problematic because I am now working nearer the centre. Okay, so our cutter is bent there. Okay, we're going to bring the cutter up in the table. So at the moment, I'm only probably touching the middle bit, which means the peripheral speed of this spinning is probably not fast enough to cut it nice and effectively. As we bring the cutter up, it will get better. So again, we're going to do 2 or 3 passes to get to that overall stage. Okay, so goggles on, earmuffs on. We want something to push it with. A better board. So this has got a handle, stop point so I can clear here, and my workpiece will go in there. Gives me something to push it through with. Again, safer than fingers. But this is all about keeping it nice and square. It's not too elaborate to make. Once you've made it, it's always there, ready to go. Okay, so let's see how we get on with this. On there, router's on. We're going to do end grain first. Push it through. Down the side grain. End grain. Side grain. Now the reason for doing that sequence pencil, camera free. Okay, so we're there. We've just taken this out. We're going to get a lot longer in length. Now the reason for doing end grain, side grain, end grain, side grain, any breakout will be on here as you splintered off. It's cleaned up coming down the grain. Go across grain, breakout point, cleans it up coming down. So you're constantly working around it. And the board is actually spinning anti-clockwise on the table. Okay, so first pass done. Let's bring it up. Switch it on. So we've done our end grain, side grain, end grain, down the grain again. So what we're trying to do, where is he down there? We're going to fit this in a minute into this. So we've got a little bit to go yet. We also want to create a step on the top. You could have flat panel if you wanted. Again, we're bringing cutter up, switch on, put the extractor on. Probably should come up a little bit more. Need a tiny bit more. Let's come up. We'll just do a quick check that we're not going to end up too small. Ooh, nice. Might be good. So we're still working same way. End grain. Side. And side. Let's have a quick check, see what we've got. A little bit to go. Now I'm just going to have a quick look. Camera free. Let's have a quick look. We're producing our step on here, which is good. I want a raised panel with a step, quite a traditional shape. My step at the moment is a little bit thin. Doesn't look definitive. Almost looks like a mistake if I left it there. So we want to make it just that tiny little bit thicker. So again, we can raise the cutter. Something with fine adjustment underneath makes it fantastic and easy to adjust. Extractor back on. Now remember, if you're doing a batch of these, you're going to do each panel at the same time. This hasn't got a lot of resistance. I just kind of say, actually, you can miss out a stage maybe on some of them, bring it up. Oh, forget that. Okay. Oh! Drop them on the floor. Where are we? Not quite there. Now, where do I want to go? Let's have a look. Right, now, our panel. Let's see what will happen. Let's see where I am. Probably get away with it. Just dropping the cutter in the table. Bring it round by hand. I want an idea of what we're going to cut off here. Tiny bit. I could come up a bit higher with the cutter. I want to scallop a little bit on the back. So I bring the cutter down. Do exactly that. Again, if I was doing a big job, I would do a batch job. I'd have a test piece. So let's see what we get on one edge. Push block again. Okay, so which I know you guys might not see this. I'm just going to colour around the back of here. We're just going to go around that. Got one there. Now the board we've got as a push block, and using that feather board again is about guarding my fingers, but also keeping pressure on the work. Going to go just down the side grain, a little bit of resistance I can see in one corner. Down there. Light cut this. Also I'm going to keep my fingertip brushes on. Just down. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4's over there. I'll push block up there. Okay, let's just have a quick look. Ben, number 1, well done, good mate. On here, first of all, don't make this too tight. This has got to fit in. You've also got 2 curves coming, so I've scalloped a little bit. 3, Ben, just for a sec. You can see what I've scalloped off the back. Tiny little bit, using exactly the same cutter, working in the center. So when this fits in, goes up to there. All right, needs to move a little bit. Don't have it really tight because you'll crack the back of these off. So that one in there, I can put bottom on there. That one on there. That in there. Okay. Ben, what have you got? A question? You've got something. Let's hold that up there. Look, I don't know if it'll sit nicely. That's not bad. What have you got, mate?
So a question from Maria here. I think you've answered a bit of it. How loose should the panel be in the frame, both in thickness and the overall outside size?
No one will see Maria, and I'll tell you, some of these things, try to get them down to about an hour. Can be fun. So I've measured everything to know what I want. Normally, if I was doing a job, I would work out all my frame sizes. So as we already said earlier, so Ben, I think we'll go to 1. If I want a 500mm door, I minus the width of its rail, plus 20mm, which is the add-on for where the moulding intersects and joins. Down on there. So Ben, probably 3 again. Look, well done, mate. Good. All right. That's there. So you need to add on that 20mm. How do I know the size of my panel? Because I can measure, once I've got the frames together and I could set it up. This is what I did for this one as a dry run. I measure from the step on the moulding. Let's just see where we are, camera. Can you go? Oh, I think you're right, Ben. I'm going to bring it back a little. I'll bring the ruler back. So I can go from the step there to here. So I've got 250. Now, I think this might show nicely. Let's just do a couple of things. I'm just going to unplug the router, move the feather board to give us a bit more room. You'll get an idea of how big that cutter is in the center there. Other thing you need to think about with this width, because timber expands and contracts. So I'm hoping you can see I've got a gap. I've taken off about 3mm. So I've measured my width. So on here, this is 150. I've cut my panel to about 147mm. Allow it so timber will expand and contract across the grain. So you've got to allow it to. If you make it dead tight and the wood fibers swell up, it will crack the frame, as in the area around the edge. It will break one of the moulding joints. And actual fact, modern adhesives are so good, it will actually crack the moulding. And that will still be glued on that end grain. So you've got to remember to take 2 or 3mm off. Height-wise, not as critical because it doesn't shrink down the length of the grain, but definitely across the grain. So your measurements, if I'm measuring the width of my door for my frame, you get your overall width minus the 2 rails plus 20mm. The 20mm is literally the 10mm between the bearing and the edge of the cutter. So the bearing to the tip. But you've got 2 of those, 1 on each side. So quite easy to do. That magic 20mm. All right. Any other questions? Anything else you've got as a... No, okay, so Ben Stile, hopefully it's been enjoyable. It's good for me to get back into here and start doing maybe some routing stuff. I know a few of you got ideas of things you'd like to see in here. Let us know. We see what we can come up with. Me and Ben got a few ideas of things we want to do in here. Next week, I've got a drill bit demo. Any questions you've got on drills, and go over a few things, all right? This demo was really about trying to show you some of how versatile that can be. Don't think about it just being a kitchen door. Hate the fact it's classed as a kitchen door type cutter. You can make it as a joining. So a blanket box, so easy to do. My cabinet I made with the glass panels, really nice to do. And all I actually did, having done the mouldings, to make the corners, and in a minute we'll get Ben to put that picture back up on the screen in a sec. He can move it into the box for me. So all I did to do the corners for that oak cabinet was work out what I wanted at a section and glue them on, so I can make up a corner frame. I even then cut out bits, and so quite easy to do. Don't go thinking you need to sit down with a bit of paper to start with, sketch it out. But you can have a look. Go on, bring the cabinet back up, Ben. So all that did was use those cutters to make the moulding, and then work out the sizes I want, where I could have the structural strength. The top box was done exactly the same. Okay, so that top box is actually a lift-off box, because that allowed us to get the transformer for the lights to go in. And sure, his shotguns, and I don't know, I dread to think what he keeps in the top of there now. Originally, it was just for the lights, okay? So, but looks really nice. It got me into trouble, I will say, because my mum went, "Where's mine?" Okay, so I've got to make my mum one at some point now, okay? But you can see how you can use exactly that same system to do interlock. Glue them together. You can make whatever sizes you want. Nice wide rails and look good. Material thickness, as Maria kind of asked, it needs to be good 18 to 21 mil thick. I like working with about 20 mil. What I've got in here, because one of you are going to, well, Jason, what have you got on there? Look, we have got 20.12 millimeters. I was going to prove it. I was going to kind of say, definitely. Okay. So about 20 mils a nice thickness to work with. It gives you, if you hold them there, Ben, something on the back. Good step to have. Nice thickness. If it's too thin on there, it'll break out. And it gives you a nice step on the front of your moulding on this cutter. All right. So quite an important part. All right. So hopefully, and like I said, drill bit one next week. Got questions, I'd love to have them. We'll see if how we can get on and answer stuff with you. Okay. What have we got this week? Ben, you've got a magic bowl. Ben's got a fantastic bowl. Walked in and saw this thing you've been making for the last few days and went, "Oh, wow." All right. So that's exciting for tomorrow. And then Colwyn's doing a turning project on Thursday. All right. So hope you've enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up. Hope you've liked this, guys. And thank you for tuning in as always. We'll see you again soon. Bye then.